mate, we did $8 million in 5 hours on the website. If people say they're not doing it to make money, they're lying. No one knew they wanted an iPod until Steve Jobs invented it, right? You know, you tell the world what they need and you make it relevant. I don't want to ever build a gas barbecue. I don't want to ever build a product that exists. I want to disrupt a space where I feel there's magic to be harnessed. I threw myself into cooking and I was like doing like dinner parties at home. I was inviting friends around. I was still saying to friends they could bring beers, even though inside I really struggled with it. One evening I just made some dough and we made pizza. Preparation of food and cooking together and prepping together, it like removed me from the reality. Something magical happened. Everybody stopped bringing beers and started bringing toppings. That's essentially where the idea of the business began. She overheard a conversation that I had with my girlfriend on the phone, and I said that I was smoking heroin. It was just so sad, man. It was just like seeing my mum's face when I was at the age of 16. The psychologist that we saw said that I'd got one of the most severe cases of addiction that he'd ever seen. You know, I told him to fuck off and left. It was also like the most disruptive element of my life, creating a ton of shit for me. I just got jumped by a group of lads that just kicked the shit out of me. And they kicked all my teeth out, broke my skull, fractured my eye socket, and it just sent me on an absolute spiral, mate. The doctor said, look, you haven't got a runway ahead of you if you carry on going. And one day I called my mum and I was just like, I need help.
Tom.
Hello, mate.
It's like trying to cut into podcast mode after chatting just before it records.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Firstly. Now, I obviously don't know kind of your full backstory. I've seen clips, I've heard things around town. I probably discovered you 2019, probably more so in 2020 when we went into lockdown and the rock box kind of blew up.
Yeah.
And that was everywhere. And obviously massive respect, because I sort of thought like, I don't want to use that word. I fucking hate the word pivot because they shoved it down our throats in our industry during COVID. But like the way you guys, I guess, adapted and still found a way to pioneer and grow with that rock box during lockdown was insane.
Thanks,
and
man.
Following your mission statement, change the way the world cooks outdoors, like you kind of like championed that even through lockdown. So that was quite inspirational to see. But I want to just take it a little bit back because I think it's really important to find out people's earlier years. It obviously shapes all of us, right? It shapes our future. Yeah. What comes when we're young. So if we take it right back to the early years, kind of like growing up, school, relationship with your parents as a kid, kind of all that stuff. What was that like for you?
Hey, it was, do you know what, man? I've always had like, always had a good life. It's been good, right? It's been like stable family, you know, like hardworking parents, like happy household. But I suppose the one thing that's the common thread that's like in my life and always been in my life is like addiction is in our family. And so whilst my dad has been like the most loving father and been amazing to us, like addiction as you know, runs through his bloodline. It was with his dad and so on and so forth. So dad struggled, you know, in the earlier years with addiction, and he didn't even know what it was back then, right? And so like in our family, we didn't really know what was going on, but it was just, you know, I suppose, especially in this country, like the culture of drinking and doing all of that stuff, it's just sort of like okay. And I suppose I grew up in that environment where alcohol was a part of our life as young kids, and it didn't really have like a huge negative impact on our family, but it was definitely like there. And yeah, like life was good, man. I went to school, just really struggled in school to succeed. I felt like I wasn't like other kids.
In what sense?
Well, do you know what, man? Like I went to, like my parents sent me to a private school. So it was like a really good school. It was called Walhampton and it's down in Lymington. It was like Hogwarts, man. It was magical. It's like 200 acres of land, horse riding, fishing, you know, small classrooms, really, really good. But even back then in a school like that, my parents worked super hard to send me there to give me like the best shot of education. Mm-hmm. But I was, you know, undiagnosed, but dyslexic. And so just similar to the conversation we had before we started, like attention span, right, is low. Like you get distracted super easily, can't really read out of a textbook, can't read. I like finish a sentence in my head somewhere else. I'm not reading. I'm reading, but nothing's going in and all of that stuff. So just didn't really learn in a classroom, man, like didn't learn. And so I wasn't successful. And so I suppose it like impacted my self-esteem, and I got lightly bullied when I was in school. and just a super sensitive little guy that didn't really know how to look after myself and like learn over the course of growing up. So I suppose school was challenging for me. I didn't really succeed in the classroom. And I wouldn't say I like really struggled to fit in, but there were definitely times where I just didn't enjoy the social dynamics because of some of the bullying. So I suppose that like impacted my life significantly and like the sort of trajectory of like where I went. And I suppose low self-esteem with regards to like succeeding and then not necessarily fitting in as well as I would like to. My behavior just started to deteriorate and I'm sure you can relate, man. It's like, when you're not winning, it started playing up and being naughty and you're like the class clown and the class idiot and like everyone starts to like you and then it just exacerbates, right? And it just gets further and further along. And I just found like I sort of found like this little persona of someone that I enjoyed being, I suppose, just got attention, whether it was good or bad, like negative attention from the teachers, becoming more popular with the other kids, behavior just got worse and worse and worse. All of a sudden, I didn't really give a fuck about school, didn't really care whether I succeeded or not. It was because of the discomfort of like not necessarily fitting in that well. I suppose like the key priority for me was like fitting in first, giving a shit about school later, or not really giving a shit about school. And so I suppose that was it. And then, went from a good school, ended up, my behavior got worse and worse to the point where I was, sort of like getting in trouble like daily in school. Well, this was when I was young. And then
what kind of age are we talking?
So I don't know. I reckon I got bullied. I reckon I started to get like lightly bullied when I was like 6 or 7 years old, maybe 8, like proper little guy.
Yeah.
And sort of behavior progressively just got worse. And like home life with alcohol at home, it wasn't perfect by any stretch, right? So it was just like, it was something to navigate. And then like went into secondary school and I suppose like gone full-fledged, like, I'd adopted this persona of being the naughty kid. And then I went, yeah. And it was like, I got respect for that. And I felt like I was super sensitive and insecure and like really low self-esteem. So being this like badass was just like, I was the fucking boy, right? I was the boy.
Yeah.
And then it just got worse, man. And then like with this sort of like insecure way of being, I then like found drugs and drink and maybe at the age of like 13. And
quite young then.
Yeah, young, man. I was like, my sister was 4 or 5 years old. Well, my sister's 4 years older than me, nearly 5. And she was like knocking around with kids that I suppose weren't overly productive when she was a teenager. And so I got pulled out of home. What they were like 16, 17. And so they come around one night and just like, get in the car. And they'd give me a shotty or something in a car and give me some weed. And I'm like, what is this stuff? This is, like I'd sort of, it was just like that, like, that sort of like irreverent, fuck you, like 13, smoking fucking weed. I was like smoking cigarettes younger than that. And it was really just to create a statement, to be popular, for the older kids to like me and to like forge this fake self-esteem, man. Bravado. And so I found drugs, man, and then found like a little social group outside of school and we were just off and running. And it was, I guess for the first time, man, it was like, I sort of found somewhere that really felt like home. It was really odd to me. It was like, found drugs, like anxiety and fear and all that stuff got lifted when we used. The boys that I were with were similar to me. They were like, didn't necessarily fit in hugely at school. They were naughty, dyslexic, whatever. And like there was a little crew of maybe 5 or 6 of us that just went out and just started using aggressively. And going into our teenage years, it just, it got progressively worse really quickly.
What's your relationship like with your parents at that stage? Like as in, growing up, you said there was alcohol at home. Were you witnessing anything that kind of maybe made you feel resentful to mum and dad? Or have your relationship with them always been good prior to obviously the kind of like being a badass?
Yeah, do you know what? Like I've always had a good relationship with mum and dad. Dad's drinking created rifts at home. Like mum and dad would argue a bit. They would bicker. It never really impacted. There was no like abuse at home. There was no like mental or emotional abuse. It was more like not just a completely stable household, right? It was just, it felt like slightly confrontational at home. And like mum adopted this like sort of mothering role as she would of like holding everybody together, keeping everyone happy. So I suppose where dad was on his own journey, mum was trying to like hold everything together. We never really got overly disciplined as kids at home, you know. And I think
or attention. Did you get much attention?
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, I think honestly for dad, I think, you know, with the arrival of us as kids, I think it changes the dynamic in any home, right? When you have kids, your relationship with your wife changes. It's hard. It's demanding. Running a business as well, it's tiring and exhausting. So I think gone from, you know, building the business together, mum and dad were like a husband and wife team, to then us being there. And it's just obviously like chaotic, right? Like lack of sleep, all that stuff. So I think it just naturally impacted home, and dad drank. But, you know, it was never, like I said, man, I'm almost get a little bit sensitive speaking about it. And I've shied away from saying it before because I never want an external perception that my dad was ever a bad guy. He wasn't. He's been such a lovely, loving, kind, caring dad that's very generous, but he really battled with it. He battled with not understanding that he had, you know, a problem with addiction. And it wasn't even labeled that, man, back in the day. I suppose I was lucky where I grew up and went fucking balls to the wall, went hard. And by the time that I went to rehab, I was broken, man. I was fucked. And it was just like, it was very black and white for me. It was just, and I felt fortunate. One of my counselors in rehab said, it's really fucking easy with you, Tom. You're a poly user. You just go out and get fucked. You'll take anything that anyone will give you. And it's like black and white, you know, like on or off, man. You are good to go. And so you're like the easiest person for us to treat, right? Because it's so severe. Like more challenging people are functioning alcoholics, people that take prescription meds, people that are addicted to toxic relationships, shit like that. That's harder, right? Because it's like, it's sort of less visible, you know, noticeably visible. And so, I sort of grew up, and relationship with mum and dad was good. I was naturally like closer to mum because, you know, dad was, dad was just not as sort of consistently stable as a role model. I suppose.
So you get up, you grow, you get to 16 years old, 15, 16, 17 years old. You finished school now?
I was booted out of school.
You were kicked out?
Yeah, I was kicked out of school.
What for?
A mixture of different things. We went out one day as a group of young kids and we were getting into trouble, taking drugs, smoking weed, you know, I can't even remember, but we made a home video of doing like naughty shit. It was like back in the day where, was it Bam Margera was releasing, you know, all that stuff where it was sort of inspiring, that sort of jackass style generation. And so we were doing naughty shit like that and took the video into the classroom, and we were watching it in break time, and one of the teachers came in and caught us watching it, and she like confiscated the tape, and I went in the staff room and stole the tape back, you know, on the break. They called an emergency meeting. They called the police. I went in the classroom, nicked the tape. One of the guys that was in the video with us was just like, we can't nick the tape. We're going to get in so much trouble. So he sort of cut the tape and put it back in the classroom. So we thought we'd destroy the evidence and put it back. And then they fixed it. The police fixed it. They watched it, and we all got in trouble. And me and I think two other kids, we got let go. We were expelled out of the school. And to be honest, mate, I didn't really give a fuck at the time. I was just like, I just didn't care. I had my school life, which was going to school, getting through the day, going to class. And then I had my life outside of school where we were taking class A drugs. We were getting fucking steaming. We were going after it, right? And so...
But not out in like clubs and that, right?
No, not in clubs.
Out and about in town.
Lived in the forest, man. We lived in the forest. So we started, like, we lived in Sway in the New Forest. Like, me and 4 or 5 mates, we were just, you know, we found marijuana young. It quickly progressed into pills, and you know, like, and then it was just, you know, we were doing every drug by the age of 16. You know, it was funnily enough, Ty, it was more accessible in the forest to get anything we wanted drug wise than it was to get alcohol. You know, it was easier. You just walk down, go and meet one of the older boys, and they would just give you whatever you want. Yeah, it was crazy, man. And do you know what? Like, and so it was just this. It was this like self-perpetuating journey of like, it was sort of, you know, like where we were so disruptive and chaotic, we sort of egged each other on to go harder and harder. And I suppose that just like became really real quite quickly, you know, with hard drugs. And mate, I'm not going to lie, like we had a fucking good time when we were kids before we got to a point where really understood the severity of what we were doing or like the dangers of abusing drugs to the level that we were. When you're like reckless and you feel like you're a normal kid just having fun, it was just like, I'm just fucking normal and this is normal and I'm invincible. You know, when you're 16, nothing can touch you, nothing can harm you. So you just go after it. And I suppose it was like growing up to my later years as a teenager, and then actually realizing like, fuck, I'm going hard here. And, you know, like whatever girlfriends I've got, they're finding it hard to be with me because I'm a lunatic when we go out. I'm like crazy and all of that stuff. And so it was just like, right, maybe I just want to calm this down a little bit. And I suppose that was it. It's like, you know, when you go on a diet and you go on a fad diet and then you just get fatter because you like starve yourself, you fall off, you binge it. It's just a fucking yo-yo effect.
Sustainable,
Yeah. And so I suppose it was like that, man. And that was the first realization for me. As soon as I tried to calm it down, using just got worse. It was just like, first time ever, I was like trying to control it and trying to cap it. And so get a moment of sobriety and then I would go like 10 times harder, you know, and be like, I'm going to stop on this date and then just go hard. And it was this like in-out cycle of...
Did that have anything to do with the people you surrounded yourself with? When you look back now, I'm not throwing dirt on those guys you were with because you had a blast with them, but when you look back now, would they kind of drag you back in if you were trying to pull out? Not intentionally, not with any malice.
Yeah, no, like 100%. I think, like, some of them would. Yeah, some of them would. And it's really interesting, right? Because I've been having this conversation with my wife about our kids and, like, the sort of addiction that runs through our DNA. It's like, if I was in a different environment, would it have been channeled differently? If someone threw me into football as a young kid, would I become obsessed with football and never wanted to touch drink? And I think probably there's a lot of truth to that, right? It's like, I think... in the early days, I was out searching for a home that felt I belonged to, right? Like a community that where I felt accepted. But what I'd done is I'd developed this sort of naughty persona that just completely fit with drugs. And then you go on and you continue to build your life as an addict, or, you know, it's not even an addict, you know, just a reckless whatever. And it just sort of all fits with the bravado. And I think, you know, by the time I got to 16, 17, like, I didn't know who I was, man. Like, my persona of taking drugs, using, going out, getting smashed, getting into trouble, getting into fights, whatever it may be as, like, young kids, that was just, like, my persona. That's what everyone knew me for. I enjoyed the fact that people, you know, knew my reputation, was scared of me, and, like, our group, it was like, that was the goal. That was the objective, right?
But it's hard enough at that age, I think, without all of that.
Yeah.
You know, like to find your way. We talked about this earlier, like school days were tough anyway. I think for most people, school days were tough. You've got this weird element of trying to fit in, trying to be normal, whatever normal is. As a 16-year-old boy, trying to become a bit of a man, a teenager, you're going through puberty. It's tough anyway.
Yeah.
Let alone throwing in everything you threw into the mix, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
Mate,
it's fucking
100%, man. And I suppose, you know, like, as I said, like, you go through this period where you don't think it's a problem and you just do it because you're having fun, you're partying, you're being reckless and you're going out and just doing whatever you want. And then got to the age of like 17, 18, and we're like, maybe I should tone this down a touch, and really realizing that I couldn't stop. That was the first time that I ever really... So it landed with me that there was something bigger going on than me just choosing to party and get wasted, right? And I've been pinched a few times for like relatively stupid shit, nothing that bad, but it was like a bit of a wake up call. It was like, right, you know, you could get in a bit of trouble here. You've got to like sort yourself out. Stop getting yourselves in these positions where you're being reckless and all of that stuff. And I guess that was it, man. It was like trying to stop. And not being able to, and it was like, fuck, there's something bigger here. And then it took me maybe like 2 years, 3 years of like this cycle, this treadmill cycle of like trying to slow it down, it getting progressively worse. And actually, like, happened over the course of those 3 years is like the intake of drugs, the intake of using just progressed so massively, just because, it was just sort of like the addiction within me was getting out of control. And the more I tried to like cap it, the more severe my addiction became.
There's something interesting I find you said there about addiction kind of being in your blood and being in your family. Did they teach you that when you go into rehab? So addiction, what I'm trying to understand is addiction.
Is it hereditary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? There's traits, right? There's like personality traits. I think, you know, I'm
obsessive.
Yeah. And
I can easily, I'm on or off.
Yeah.
Most of the time I don't party, because if I party, I like to party. Or if I like to do this.
Yeah.
If I get into fucking bike riding, I buy the best bike and I'm bike riding every day. Like it's on or off for me as well.
Yeah.
That's why I was curious about it.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know. Like, I believe that like addiction is hereditary. Through my experience of seeing it, I think there's a chemical imbalance in my bloodline and my family with alcohol. My sister, you know, will drink. She likes to party. She'll go nuts with it, right? And my dad couldn't stop drinking when he was in his younger years. I like the second I have a pint, I'm off and running for a month. You know, you won't stop me. I'll wean myself off it. I'll get a couple of days sobriety and then I'll think I can have a pint again and then I'm off and running again. So there's definitely like that addictive gene that sort of courses through our bloodline. And yeah, you know, it is widely talked about. Well, it was widely talked about in South Africa in the treatment centre that I went to, that there was like, you know, it's hereditary illness. But I think, you know, like as a parent now, I think about like how I could sort of pave a different path for my kids, you know. And like I said earlier in the interview, it was like, I think there's so much around environment and like, you know, like positive role models and actually like encouraging your kids to be active. I think sport, physical activity, it's the one medicine for me in my life now that always makes everything okay. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like I've cross-addicted in my recovery. I've, you know, like got fat as fuck, eating loads of food. I've got shopping addictions. I've got a partial sneaker addiction now, which I'm like okay with. And, you know, I've like jumped into all the different things, but like the one grounding element is just like for my health and well-being, mental health is just fitness. It's just like, it's always grounded me. It's always like made like the noise just quieten slightly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm excited to like pave the way for my kids to go down that route.
Just touching on it and then we'll move on. So at what point do you accept that it's a problem and reach out for help, or someone gives you help to kind of go into rehab, to kind of be sat here like you are today?
Yeah, my mum took me into the Priory when I was, how old was I? Fucking hell, man. I think I was 16. She overheard a conversation that I had with my girlfriend on the phone, and I said that I was smoking heroin, and it was just so sad, man. It was just like seeing my mum's face when I was at the age of 16, and like her, you know, hearing firsthand that was happening was just like brutal. And so she saw, you know, like she said, look, we need to go and see a specialist and find out what's going on and all of that sort of stuff. And so I went into the Priory when I was like 16 to be observed or whatever. And I remember it. Like, I was just such deep-rooted denial, you know, like, because my tightest friendship group, that was like normal to us. It wasn't abnormal. It was like, what the fuck are you going on about? Everyone does this. But actually the reality was that we were just immersed in a little clique where a lot of people in this like highly focused clique did do it, but like normal kids at 16 or 17 weren't, you know, weren't doing that stuff. So we went into the Priory, and, you know, I suppose the point was, Tyler, I was just like not even close to being ready, right? And the psychologist that we saw said, you know, that I'd got one of the most severe cases of addiction that he'd ever seen through all the work that he did with me. And I told him to fuck off and left, you know, like that was literally it. I was like unruly. I was like disrespectful, all of that stuff, and just like hiding from the reality of like, I didn't know how to be comfortable in my own body outside of being in that world. It's what I'd learned and it's what gave me comfort. It was also like the most disruptive element of my life, creating a ton of shit for me, like getting me into trouble, mum and dad upset with me, almost this like cyclical motion of like dealing with guilt and shame for my family and like just using to get away from
Escaping.
it. Yeah, fuck it. It's just the cycle, man. And yeah, and then, you know, like as I said, trying to stop and struggling to stop, and then there was just a moment that happened for me, man. I was out in Bournemouth. When was I? I was 20, and I just got jumped by a group of lads that just kicked the shit out of me.
For what reason?
No reason, man. So it was in Lansdowne, you know, Inferno,
Yeah.
outside Inferno, and I was like walking back to my flat one night. I think I'd had a row with my missus in one of the clubs down there in the fire station or something like that, and I was walking home, and this chap I could see him looking at me when he was walking up to me, and he just fucking slammed into me on purpose, and I'm like, mate, what the fuck are you doing? You know, like charged up as well, just like, I'm not fucking having that. What are you up to? And like we start beefing off on each other. And then he just like lays into me, and like 6 of his mates are just stood around the corner waiting. And then they all run round, and they ended up like all kicking my head in, man. They kicked all my teeth out, broke my skull, fractured my eye socket.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was brutal, man. I picked my teeth up off the pavement, and it was, yeah, it was crazy. And that was like, I got into hospital, and they put my teeth back in my mouth because they're like, the bone can reconnect if you get your teeth back in your mouth quickly. So I had 3 teeth in my pocket. They put them in my mouth, and then they sent me home the next morning, and I was fucked, man. Like, it was like my face was out here. I couldn't shut my mouth because my teeth were like higher than my bite line. So I was just broken, man. And it just sent me on an absolute spiral, mate. It was, you know, to the point where I was like waking up anytime I'd wake up, I'd be drinking to oblivion, like downing bottles of vodka, taking whatever drugs are around, but like drinking to oblivion. And that was like the beginning of a very different journey for me. You know, like there was this sort of like hedonistic sort of like irreverent journey before I was going out and getting fucked. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, lads, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, you can sort of justify it by being a dickhead.
Yeah.
And then to the point where I was like broken, traumatized, it really like fucked my life up, fucked my mental health up. I was like having anxiety attacks going out, you know, it like really, really did a number on me. And so I was just drinking to oblivion. And my poor girlfriend that lived with me at the time, you know, she was maintaining a job. She would come home, she'd put me back into bed, and I would just do it all over again. And I was promising her I was going to stop. I just couldn't stop. I was like so helpless. And that was it, really, man. I suppose I was in that cycle for like maybe 3 to 4 months of just absolute oblivion drinking, to the point where I'd gone back into hospital for my face, and they were just like, something's not right with you, you know, and they connected me up, and they said my liver was fucked. And the doctor said, look, you haven't got a runway ahead of you if you carry on going. So I was just abusing alcohol so aggressively. And so it was just like a moment, right? And I suppose my girlfriend that I was with at the time, you know, she was a very big factor in it. She was just like, look, you know, you need to fucking get help. I can't stay here to like enable you anymore. Like, I can't be buying you drink from the shop. I can't be letting this happen. And so I think she probably gave me the nudge, you know, but I was like broken anyway and ready. And one day I called my mum, and I was just like, you know, like, I need help. And mum was just like, fucking.
Sounds like an angel, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Patience.
Mate. Mum's just sort of sat there quietly in the sidelines waiting for 7 or 8 years for me to put my hand up and say, I'm fucking ready. And then she was, mate, we were like, literally called mum. She found a place in Arizona, that was like a boot camp. It was in Tucson, Arizona, and it was like an army camp for naughty kids. And I was just like, look, mum, I don't fucking need a boot camp. I don't need some drill sergeant screaming at me. I'm like a drug addict and alcoholic, right? I'm not a bad kid. I just can't control my actions right now. I've got like deep rooted addiction. And so we did a bit of Googling over the course of a day. I found a treatment center in South Africa that, you know, it was like a Christian program rooted in addiction. And mate, we like called them within 2 days. I was in Harley Street in London, like meeting with their like triage guys. And like less than a week later, I was on a plane to South Africa, man.
Wow.
And it was just, and to be honest, Ty, it was all a fucking blur for me, man. I was so fucked for that last period. And I don't actually remember traveling to South Africa. I woke up in treatment after a horrendous journey for my mum getting me there because I was out of control. Woke up in a dorm room in a treatment center, and I'm like, where the fuck am I? There's palm trees outside. I didn't know what was going on, and then like cried and begged my mum to take me home. You know, just absolutely petrified of being there, and she was broken, man. I tried to like escape from her when we were traveling over there. I'd like necked a bottle of vodka in an off license in the airport, not paid for it, just, nearly got arrested multiple times. And she just about got me there. And she was just like, I can't fucking take you home. Like you're here. And, I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that was for her to like let her son go to a facility that she didn't know when I was begging her to take me home. But I was broken. I was like, I think it was like really a crunch point for me as to whether or not if I'd come home, I probably wouldn't have made it, whether I died from alcoholism or getting into a similar situation where I got beaten up. So it was time, man. It was time for me to do it. And so I stayed, and it was, one of the best decisions that I'd ever made in my life going there.
Respect,
and
mate.
Had a fundamentally amazing experience. When I look back at it as a whole, like I learned a ton about myself. I learned about my addiction. I learned about the severity of it, the impact, and fundamentally learned how to live, or built the foundation for living in the world without being a fucking lunatic. Well, yeah.
Would you say that those things you just said then are the kind of the lesson you've learned from them harder years that kind of help you now still? Is there something you learned from those years that you still apply to, say, work or relationships or life now?
Mate, like everything, like it was so funny because I go into the treatment centre and it's a Christian rehabilitation centre. My counsellor, who I love dearly, who really helped save my life, was a pastor. Mm-hmm. And I went in open-minded. I was like, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to surrender. There was a journey of events that he took me on in there that helped me get to a stage of where I'm at. But there was going in there, and then there was trying to adopt Christian principles, right? And I was open-minded to Christianity, like anything to help me improve my situation, improve my life. And so I just went to Oliver and I was like, I said to him, I was like, look, I'm open-minded to this, but I'm, not a religious guy. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in all of those things. But the 12-step program is about having a higher power of your own understanding to help you navigate life. And it gives you a lot of security and faith and all of that stuff. I went through a series of events with Oliver where he helped present Christianity to me and God to me to like allow me to make my own decision as to whether or not I felt like a Christian faith was a journey that I wanted to go on. And fundamentally, with respect to everybody in the treatment center and everybody that follows a religion, it just wasn't the right thing for me. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I would say is there was something special about all the guys that believed in God. There was a glimmer in their eye. There was hope. There was faith. Mm-hmm. There was something special that they had that I wanted. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And then Oliver would be like, it's God. I'm like, for fuck's sake. And so I went on a journey, and I suppose learning from Oliver and learning how to conduct myself, how to treat people, how to be a good person. Basically, I suppose rehab gave me the foundations of a moral code that I adhere to in order to keep myself safe. And when I say keeping myself safe, everything I do in my life now is fundamentally rooted in like looking after my recovery, because like that comes first. It comes before my kids, my wife, everything. It's like, if I don't have that, I don't have any of that stuff that comes with it. And so, I learned a set of moral principles in treatment that I adhere to and I live by today. And they're really just Christian principles without it being Christian. If I'm a dick, I say sorry. Yeah. All the standard stuff that you just fucking grow up and you learn as a decent human being. You do this shit and life is better for you, right?
That's kind of what my my old man always instilled in me. He was like, son, doesn't matter if they're Christian, Muslim, whatever. He said, you don't need to have a religion. Just be a good human being.
Yeah.
Like hold out doors, pull out chairs,
Totally. Just
say sorry, say thank you, be honest, be true to yourself, all that kind of stuff. And a bit like Buddhism, isn't it?
Yeah.
If anything, if you were going to pick one, that would probably be the one for me.
Mate. And it's just, do you know what, man? It's like whenever I don't listen to it, my higher power became like my inner conscience, right? Like feeling here when you do something wrong, you're addicted to someone and you just feel like, oh my God, I've been a knob, I need to apologize. And like, if I don't do it, I have a shit day. If I go and say sorry, it's like slate clean and everything's good. And so I generally try and conduct myself now on the basis of like living by those principles. And it's just like you said, man, it's just not being a dick, just being a good human, man.
Really? Yeah. That's our one obligation really on the planet, isn't it?
Totally, man.
Be a good human being. Yeah. How long have you been sober now?
Mate, it was 16 years last week.
I was going to say it's Feb. I read online.
Yeah,
I did
Feb
some research.
3rd, yeah.
Big month for you then.
Yeah, man. Do you know what,
What's
mate?
the date today? The 8th.
8th, yeah. So what was it? It was 5 days ago. Was it 5 days ago? Yeah.
13 years.
16 years.
16 years.
16 years. Yeah. It was crazy, man, because it feels like I went to rehab 5 minutes ago and started this journey, and then it's like, bang, it's a decade, and now, it's crazy.
If I said to you, what was your darkest moment in terms of, if you think back now, what upsets you the most about that whole period of your life?
I don't know, man. There's loads of dark moments, mate. Loads of moments in realization. I suppose all of it fundamentally comes down to hurting other people, hurting loved ones, right? Like the realization in treatment of what I put my parents through was a dark time for me, and Oliver, my counsellor, really helped me come to terms with the severity of my addiction. And so I suppose that was one of the hardest times. I went into treatment. My first 6 weeks in treatment, I had to write a life story, right? You go and work through the 12 steps. Step, I think it's step 2. I'm a bit rusty with it now. Step 2 is like, or the step 1 in treatment, was writing a life story, reading it to a group. It allows a sort of either a larger group or a focus group of people to understand like what you've been through, who you've hurt, how you've conducted yourself. And it essentially like creates a level of vulnerability for you to be susceptible to change. And I spent 6 weeks, when I got into treatment, I spent 6 weeks like writing my life story, and I'm like, going to motor through this, right? I want to get out quick. And my mindset was like, get rehab done, get the fuck out, get home. And I hadn't fully surrendered to the process. And I actually think like, if I continued on that vein, I probably wouldn't have stayed sober. And it was funny, man. There was this moment that Oliver, and this is one of the things that I'm most grateful for. It was fucking horrible at the time, but I went up to him the day that I'd read out my life story and said, Ollie, I've sort of finished my life story. I'm moving on to the next steps. And he was like, that's brilliant, Tom. And he said to me, he's like, I've organised for your parents and your girlfriend to come out and see you. And I'm like, wow, that's fucking amazing. Like all smiles, like hugging him, high fives. And then he took my life story off me and he ripped it up. And he was just like, you're on communication ban. You're not allowed to speak to anyone for 10 days and your family and girlfriend aren't coming. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, this dude has just walked up to me, given me a pat on the back and said like, congrats, your family are coming out. And then he's basically said, fuck you, you're a dick. You're on communication ban. And I'm like, I wasn't allowed to speak to any of the residents in the treatment facility. I wasn't allowed to speak to counsellors. I would stand outside the counsellor's office like day 2, day 3 of communication ban, and Ollie would just walk past me, wouldn't look at me. And I'm like, please just tell me what I've done. And
what the hell? What's that for? What's that about? He wouldn't.
And then like day 10, we go into what we did in treatment was sit in what was called confrontation groups, right? Which sounds really confrontational, and they actually were. There was this really interesting dynamic in the treatment facility where the counsellors often said their main role was to create a consistent level of unease in the treatment centre to make you feel like you're about to get in loads of shit or you're going to get outed for doing something wrong. And there was this like sort of hostile level of discomfort that basically allows you not to ever get into a bubble or a comfort zone. And so you're susceptible to change. But day 10, Ollie walked down. We were sat in a confrontation group with 90 of us. and he put an envelope on my lap and he was just like, read this to the group. And it was basically like a step-by-step account from my mum, dad and girlfriend at the time of what it was like living with me throughout the course of my addiction, which comes back to your earlier question, your darkest points. And that was like, he asked me to read it to the entire group. So I was like reading my mum and dad's and girlfriend's accounts of like living life with Tom over the course of the last 7 or 8 years. And it was like harrowing, right? It was like my mum hadn't slept a night for 8 years. My dad had a nervous breakdown, was on medications. My girlfriend was doing stuff that I don't really want to talk about on here, but it like severely affected her. And I was like bawling my eyes out, just like, like I felt like I'd broken the people that I loved the most. And at the end of the session, Ollie came up and hugged me and he basically said, anyone that truly understood the severity of their addiction would never have been happy and excited to see their family or their girlfriend. They would have been guilty and shameful and they would have been nervous and apprehensive. And it was like this fucking moment, man, that he basically put me in social isolation for 10 days where I was basically just questioning everything. And then like that level of anxiety that 10 days of silence brings you, where you don't have answers and you're not allowed to get them, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't fucking ditch out of rehab, couldn't do anything. It's like completely helpless for the first time, right? And then he like drops these letters on me that he'd obviously arranged for those guys to write. And it was just like the biggest wake-up call, man. I remember it being the first time ever in my life that the severity of my illness had like, I truly understood it and understood how much I'd hurt my parents. And it was just like, mate, it was just like the most meaningful moment, I suppose, in my sort of adult life where I surrendered and I knew I would never drink again. I knew I'd never use drugs again. And I sort of said that to Oliver. I was like, Oliver, I'm never going to drink again. I'm never going to use again. He's like, I know. And he just walked off. It sort of gave me a hug and walked off. And it was fun. And that was like one of a few things that he'd done for me. But yeah, so that was a moment. Like reading that letter was like sort of acutely horrific, followed by freedom.
Yeah.
Which was fucking crazy. Like think back to other times, mate. Yeah, I mean, when I was in Bournemouth towards the end, like begging for alcohol, stealing alcohol, just so desperate, right? Like nowhere to, it's just fucking horrible, man. Yeah.
It's extremely powerful hearing you talk about it, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I think like the parents piece, I think, would be the thing that would break me.
Yeah. Just feel like as a son, you have an obligation. Folks have looked after you. They've brought you into the world. They've given you everything you need. And then you're a fucking little knob back to them. And you're just like, that's not cool. Don't be a dick, we're all right. And
do you think like, because of all that stuff you've kind of been through, are you less judgmental of people and their decisions?
Yeah. Do you know what, man?
Do you see what I mean? Because I feel like
it's, when people harmed us in treatment, they taught us to pray for them, and that's a Christian way of looking at it, but they're like, their actions towards you because they're not happy. If someone's doing something against you, they're not happy with their own life, they're not internally happy. So you need to like pray for them and like lift whatever unhappiness out of their lives. And so I know that almost feels a little bit hippie when you live in the day-to-day of the real world when someone's a dickhead to you and you're like, I'm not going to do that. Like, but being cognizant and empathetic to other people and like other people, so many people, man, hide what's going on behind closed doors. We all do. And that was why it was like a really interesting moment and journey for me to share my story and some of the details about my story. It's like, I know everyone fucking talks about this, but living in the world that we live in on social media where everything is a fucking holiday and a honeymoon period, it's just not the case, Like I've built the business over the course of the 10, 12 years and it's been an amazing journey and I've been broken countless times, like stressed to fuck, unhappy, like really, really struggled with my mental health and struggled with the journey. And it looks like it's fucking roses because you just like work hard, build a business, you market a brand, people see the marketing, it's all fucking smiles and
sunshine and rainbows.
Man, it's bullshit, man. Like the reality is it's like...
It goes to that like comparison piece. I've spoken about this before, but especially with social media, I found it, especially during lockdown. We only post the best 5% of our lives, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to post the fucking shit. You're not going to post yourself sat on the sofa crying.
Yeah.
You're not going to post all that kind of stuff. So you post these amazing snapshots, and you've got someone sat at in their home on their sofa, effectively comparing their 95% of their life to your 5%.
Totally.
And they're feeling fucking overwhelmed. They're feeling stressed, and they're probably not realizing that person's also got a 95% in the background.
Yeah, 100%, man.
That's kind of what I think. Once you understand that, you don't get as influenced by social media as much. Because otherwise, I think it's quite like a dangerous place to be.
Super dangerous. And I
live on there as well. Like
I have, I lent in and built my Instagram in lockdown, and then I've sort of had a break from it. And I haven't really, it's like, it's a world that you dive into and you live in it, and it can be time consuming, and it can take you away from your family and all of that stuff. So I'm like sort of apprehensive about diving back in, right? Because I've just got some balance in my life where I'm like happy and present and all of that stuff. But yeah, in answer to your earlier question, man, like sort of judgmental piece, I think it's easy to like as a knee-jerk reaction jump to being judgmental, and like, I think in that sort of like realm of living in a world where I try and be a positive person, I just sort of like take a moment, process, and then try and move on and not harbor resentment. In treatment as well, they also taught you, like so many of my guidelines for living life are built from the facility that I went to, but they basically said in treatment, like the number one offender for relapse is resentment. So like if you resent someone, they're not carrying it around with them. You carry it, you fucking hate them, you're like cursing them in your head, and it consumes you. And they would just like let it fucking go. You can't go round. And I think I've been quite fortunate in the fact that like my mum is a very optimistic, she's empathetic, she sees the good in everyone, and I've got an element. I've got my mum in me, obviously, and so I think I find it quite easy to get through life without being resentful. I like let go of stuff and I just move on. And I suppose over a while, Ty, I sort of like allow myself to be vulnerable in situations that I choose to be, and so it's just as I grow, I'm just sort of like limit the exposure to allowing people to hurt me to a degree. Life gets busy, you have kids, you grow a business, you make time for the people that really matter, right?
It's that quote, I don't know who wrote it, but it says like, it's like drinking poison expecting the other person to die. Yeah. That's like resentment. Yeah, that's like holding a grudge. It's only hurting you. They don't give a fuck. They're living their life. They're living their life. Yeah. And the other thing, like it's kind of a bit of a stoic mentality, that not reacting to someone's actions. Like you can't control what someone's doing, but you can only control your reaction. Yeah. And that's I think the real powerful thing. I tried to practice that a lot over COVID. I kind of read a lot about that, because that whole judgmental piece, you kind of they do something to you and you want to bounce back and shout and scream and get angry, but they've won then. Yeah. As in they can control you. Yeah.
That's like so true, man. And I try not to be hugely reactive. My wife would say something different. She'd be like, "You're a dick," and I'm like,
maybe with
half an hour later, I'm always apologizing to her. But like we have a brilliant relationship. But it's so true, man. 100%.
I mean, and you said about that presence piece earlier. I'm kind of going through that at the moment. Yeah, like I feel I've had a lot going on the last few years, as everyone has, and the tail end of last year was pretty tough with work, and I've just found that I've kind of slipped back into not really being present. So I'll be at a dinner table with my missus, my wife, and I'm either on my phone. If I put my phone down, I'm only there physically. I'm mentally not there. Yeah. I'm not present. Yeah. So I've literally just started going back to like my therapist and kind of try and work out where that's coming from and how I can identify it and help trying to get over it, basically.
Yeah. Mate, it's really important, man, isn't it? And it like for your own happiness, not just only your wife, your kids, whatever, but actually being present. And, I see a sort of like spiritual healing lady who's amazing. I don't even know how to really explain her, but she's almost like a little bit of a therapist, but she's like a spiritual healer. And she basically just said the same thing to me a year or so ago. She was like, Tom, you're on this amazing journey, but you're never looking at the view. You know, you're like head down and you're just grafting, you're just climbing. And she's like, for what? You need to like look up and take in the sights, right? And it's, you know, it's funny, isn't it? Because you just get so transfixed on whatever this fucking idea of success is, whether it being a financial amount of money or like status or whatever it is. And it's like, for what? No one truly gives a fuck. Like, no one truly cares. You think like the world cares about you, but like everyone's just on their own journeys, man.
And it's so funny to hear you say that. I said something similar the other week, but if you zoom out far enough as well, none of it fucking matters.
None of it matters.
You're on the planet for 60, 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
How long's the planet been here? Like, if you zoom out far enough from a perspective,
and you think you're fucking
it's
top
irrelevant.
boy.
Yeah, you think everything you're doing is so important. That post, that car, that job, that meeting, that podcast. And you think it's bollocks, really.
It's bullshit.
You're caught up in it. And then you get like natural disasters, like kind of what's going on in Turkey at the moment, all this kind of stuff. And it's immediately, you know, a day before that earthquake, I was writing a letter to Hampshire Council because 2 of my tyres burst because I hit a pothole. And it was like the worst thing that ever happened. You know, like, but what a first world problem.
Totally.
Fucking $2,000, 2 tyres, and you to think this is the council. And like a week later, like I got family ringing me, the house have broken down. They're out in the snow. They've got no food, no help coming,
Your family
nothing.
are out there.
Yeah, well, my dad's out at the moment. But I mean, we're lucky. But as in like friends of family, you know, they're in this position where like, you know,
perspective, man.
Perspective. You know, I'm hearing horror stories today of all sorts about aid trucks arriving at borders and the good stuff being nicked out and the bad stuff being sent in, and you know, like Turkish villages getting help but Kurdish villages not. All sorts of political corruption. When really it's a disaster. Fucking help everyone. They're all human. Like, go everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Brutal,
Help everyone.
Man.
And we're sat here sort of thinking, you know, it's perspective, isn't it?
Perspective, man. It's, you know, and I think it becomes really clear, like, you know, in the early days for me, when I set up the business and I was just like all about the grind, all about like, all I gave a fuck about was the external, like the world's perspective of me.
Validation.
Yeah, validation. It was like low self-esteem. I got clean. My teachers told me I'd amount to shit. Everyone tried to get me asboed out of my town that I lived in. I'm like, how can I put a massive like double fingers up at the world, right? And so it's like, fucking sprint out, go and buy a Lambo. Do you know what I mean? It was like, and it made me feel whole. It made me feel like, look at fucking what I'm doing.
Your ego, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's so funny, man. Like, I don't know if it's age and maturity or, you know, I suppose it's all part of a wider journey, but it just becomes less and less important the more you gain that perspective. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, I had fun, but it's like a little bit cringe, a little bit embarrassing, man. Like stunting around, you know, like we were just out the gates with the business. I'd like the first bit of money I got, I bought a fucking Lambo, like straight away.
What Lambo did you buy?
Mate, I bought a Gardo Spider. And
of course, a few years back this now.
Yeah, mate, this is like, when was it? 2014, something like that. It was like my goal when I went to treatment. I was like, gonna have a goal. I'm gonna buy a Lambo before I'm 30. That was like my goal. It was like my driving force. And actually, I don't regret having like materialistic goals because I worked hard for it. I felt proud when I sat in it. And, you know, but I look back now and I'm like, it wasn't for the reasons. It's like you're stunting it all over social and all that stuff now. And I suppose I'm like much more private now about, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, but it's just perspective and maturity and age, isn't it?
I was going to ask you, half answered it, but do you ever look back and kind of realize how far you've come? Actually look back, take a moment, or are you constantly chasing the next goal? Because I'm a bit like that. Yeah,
do you know what, man? Like, I have been chasing goals for ages, and I suppose I recently handed the reins of the business over to a CEO.
Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Mate, it was fucking amazing. It is amazing. I'm in the process of doing it now. You know, like, I suppose as a sort of entrepreneurial person, I love innovation. I love designing products. I love thinking about consumers. I love thinking about building businesses. I worked relentlessly to build the business over the years, right? Like literally relentlessly. And like I said to you earlier, I suppose, you know, nearly bankrupt 5 times from 2010 to here, like high stress situations where I thought I'd lose everything that I sort of worked so hard to build. And really, I fought to drive the business to get to a level of momentum where it was interesting enough to attract people that could take it off my hands, that I believed in, that I trusted. And so by the time we got to 6 months ago, a year ago, I suppose I guess where I'm at now is I'm like really, really ready to go on the sort of next phase of my journey. And like business has got to a certain size now where it's got momentum and it just needs to be scaled. And I still feed into the innovation pipeline. I come up with all the ideas for our products. I design the products. I do the aesthetics of the products. So I'm sort of like creative brand product guy for the brand.
Yeah.
And now I've just got a really well-seasoned CEO who is just executing on it daily, and for me that's been the most amazing experience. And I suppose the only reason why it's been an incredible experience for me is because Denny, our CEO, I've known him for 3 years. He sat on the board for almost 3 years. He's a wonderful human, like low ego, just super humble, and he's a fucking weapon, man. And so like building such a close relationship with him, it was almost, I explained it to Denny. We sort of we had a moment together when we said, right, let's do this, where, he basically handed in the notice for, an exceptionally good job. He was the president and CEO of Dickies, the clothing brand.
Wow.
And
big dog.
Yeah, he's a big dog, man. He's no joke. And he took a proper leap of faith to step out of a role like that to come to us. And I sort of shared to him, it's like walking my firstborn child down the aisle to him, is like how it felt. And he just completely appreciates that. And we just empathize with each other's positions. And we're just like, we're locked in. We're going to go through tough times, we're going to go through good times, but our arms are locked and we're doing it together, and that was the sort of conversation that we had. And it feels amazing. I feel like now I've been given a bit of freedom. Being an operator and running the company is not naturally what I'm good at. I'm a creative. I'm not an operator. So like being the person leading the business and like dealing with the consistent growing pains was just something that I was, don't really enjoy. Love the people, love the creativity.
Have you always had an interest in like design and making things and engineering? Or
Yeah.
is that where's that come from?
Yeah, mate. From a kid, I love engineering, love building. I used to build animal traps when I was a kid, and I suppose
Did you? Sick.
Yeah, fucking loved it. Hedgehog traps, snake traps. Don't know if I ever caught anything. Loved going fishing when I was a kid. Just a really practical. Yeah, love engineering, love aesthetic, love brands, all that sort of stuff. So, building the business, and I suppose, where I didn't achieve in school, coming in and starting a business, it was a vehicle for me to truly understand what I was good at, what I enjoyed. And then I could just lean into that and do it well. And, we've made some products that have been super successful because of that, obsession with engineering, aesthetic, quality, and delivering something new to the world. And I suppose that's my obsession. It was how can we be the biggest and the best business in the world in our sector? And we need to innovate. We need to reinvent. We need to give consumers something new. We need to solve problems for them. We need to look at all of the challenges that there are in our sector. We need to solve them. Then we need to package it in something that's beautiful, that works, that's good value. And that's what we did with Gozney. We bought wood-fired cooking from something that was really niche into more mainstream by making products more accessible, more affordable, all of that stuff. And so I love it, man. And so now I'm able to do the things that I enjoy at Gozney. I'm forging our sort of blue sky product team. We've got a roadmap of products that we're launching at Gozney over the next 3 years that will continue to make the business grow, to hit our targets. And then I'm on to the sort of next phase of products and verticals that we're going after, which
sounds
is really
exciting,
fun.
mate.
Yeah, it's fun for me, man. I just, I get out of bed in the morning. I get to innovate. I get to work with great team of product guys, travel around, being the face of the brand. It's just fun now for me. So the question of how's it going? I just, I feel blessed, man. I feel I feel like I've put in the hard yards to get to a place where I can sort of enjoy a bit more balance. Yeah, and I feel good, man. I feel good. It's very surreal being on a fucking journey now where I'm able to come out of the engine room slightly to have like a little bit more perspective and a little bit more of a clearer view, and actually just seeing what the fucking company is doing now. It's just like I'm not critical to every decision. You know, I'm not critical. I didn't even know that we were, you know, I do know, but like, I didn't know when our German offices are opening. It just happens now. And I'm like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, that's wild, man.
It's like being able to hand over that control, which I think you've done well. And it's tough, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs, isn't it? When you get to a point where you're kind of going, well, no, they're not going to do it as well as me, or maybe understanding that your strengths is here and not here, and not being afraid. You know, that whole piece of, I don't know, hiring a marketing director that's more qualified than you and then, or better experience than you, but then telling them what to do, micromanaging them, which kind of defeats the object of why you hired them. So it's good that you can do that, man. That's everyone's dream to do.
Do you know what? It's not always been easy. Like the marketing is a really good example. Like I naturally lean into marketing. We've hired people that I'm just like, sorry, this isn't going to work. You know, you're not quite at the level. But I suppose now where I've got to, I suppose one of the things, Ty, man, I'm in no way ashamed to admit what I'm good at and my areas where I would class need development, but I don't even give a fuck about saying I need developments. I'm just not going to develop areas that I don't need to do. I'm just going to like focus at what I'm brilliant at and I'm good at and add that value to the company. And so, I think Denny will do a better job at running the business than me. You know, I won't do a better job than him. And, knowing that and knowing that like my core focus, no pressure, Dan. My core focus is to build the business, man. And like, what are the right steps for making the business as successful as possible? That's not me putting myself on a platform and saying like, I am this fucking, like world achieving CEO. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm like, my name's on the tin. I design the product. I get like all my fulfillment from seeing a product that's come out of my head going into a garden.
Yeah.
And if I've got a team of amazing people, they should get the credit for building it. You know, we all play our part, man. And so I'd like to hero that sort of like unity that we have between all of us. It's important to me, man. It's the journey, Ty, isn't it? It's like
100%.
locking arms with people 100%. And like
100%.
Someone giving everything in their life to a cause and building it. And it's just like we all play our roles, man, and everyone should be reflecting, for that.
I can feel the passion when you talk about it. It's quite amazing, really.
Thanks, man.
I think energy, it's all about energy in life.
Yeah.
Energy off energy. Do you know what I mean? When you're around someone that's got that good energy, it fucking helps you become a better person.
Yeah.
You've got to keep like radiators around you, right? Not drains.
Totally.
I'll nick that out of Jay Morton's book, by the way, in case he's listening. So, mate, talk to me about pizza. Why pizza?
Yeah. Do you know what, man? It was, it's fucking interesting, man. It's interesting because it's like, I got like a proper drive in me. And I suppose pizza was the first thing. It wasn't even pizza. And so let me just rewind, man, so I can fucking make sense. I left treatment, man, and I was 21. My tight-knit little group of mates that I was partying with, some of them were cleaning up, some of them were still bang at it, some of them hadn't made it, and so like my wider friendship group, they were just really warming up to drugs and drink, right? Well, 21, retired, everyone's starting to go out and party and like really get into it. So I'm like, how the fuck do I even survive in this life? Like, who am I, firstly? Because I'm not the persona, the fucking hard man, druggy, knobhead persona anymore. I'm like a sensitive, vulnerable, I'm me now for the first time in the world. I'm like, who is that and how am I comfortable in my own skin? And so, do you know what, man? It was a journey. I left treatment and I was like, I'm going to be fiercely defensive around having a normal fucking life. So I went out, I moved back to Bournemouth. I was like going out clubbing and
What, not drinking?
Not drinking.
Fair
And
play.
it was fucking stupid. The guys in rehab was just like, don't do it. You cannot go into environments like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming out at 21 and being the guy that can't go near a pub, being the guy that can't go near a nightclub. And it was actually fucking stupid, Ty, if I'm honest. And it was just immature, defensive and pig-headed of me to think that I can go and shut myself in an environment like that so quickly. But it helped me. It was like,
Strong-willed though, mate, to be in those environments.
Well, and stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, strong-willed, man. And I've always been strong-willed. And I suppose that moment of surrender that I had in treatment was a moment for me. But even then, you know, they used to say in treatment, you hang around a barber shop, you're going to get a fucking haircut eventually, you know? And, that. And that was... And so I went out, and I suppose I was going out clubbing and just realised, man, like, after a month or two of doing it, you know, when you're sober and you're going out with everyone that's around you that's smashed right up, like everyone's hanging off you, telling you how much respect they've got for you for being sober. You hear that like 850 times a night, and you're like, do you know what? This isn't as fun as it used to be. And so I suppose that was a moment for me. I was just like, well, do you know what? I've come out. I'm a different guy now. Like being in the clubs and going out and doing all that stuff, it's not enjoyable if you're not getting on it, you know? And so I was just on a quest really to look for something to throw myself into, to give me purpose in life, to give me a new journey. And yeah, I threw myself into cooking. It was like I had a very small handful of friends that I was sort of open enough to in the very early days of being vulnerable in my recovery, and you know, sort of essentially forged even deeper connections with friends, you know, because I suppose going through a journey like that, you quickly realize who your real friends are, you know. And like, I know that's quite a cliche statement, but some friends say, oh, you're fucking bored, do a shot. You're fucking boring, do a shot. You were much more fun before. And some friends, you know, don't bring beers around and they ask you if you're okay. And, you know, like, and that goes a long way, right? And
Definitely.
And so I threw myself into cooking, and I was like doing like dinner parties at home. I was inviting friends around. I was still saying to friends they could bring beers, even though inside I really struggled with it. But I was just still fiercely defensive not to be this guy that made the social dynamic awkward. My friends wanted to have a beer, have a fucking beer. I'm like good with it, and I put on a brave face. Never told anyone that I struggled, but I struggled. And so we cooked, and one evening I just made some dough and we made pizzas. I was like, we're going to do pizzas tonight. And I had like 4 friends around, and we sort of opened our dough balls, topped our pizzas, cooked them in the conventional oven. And it was like super fun, man. And I suppose one of the things that cooking gave me, preparation of food and cooking together and prepping together, it like removed me from the reality. You know, when you get like lost in, you know, you go skiing or you go fishing, you don't remember the world, you just like, and that's sort of a preparation of food, connecting with people.
Focus, isn't it, almost?
Yeah, and just detachment, you know, and it was almost like super therapeutic, right? And really enjoyed making pizzas, cooking them in the conventional oven, and they just came out like soggy and a bit shit. But the process was fun. And so I was just like, fuck, that was really, really cool. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I said to Law, I want to buy a pizza oven for the garden. That was like super fun. And we were skint. We were fucking broke at the time. She was just like, and so I looked online and they were like thousands of pounds.
Right.
And there was no way we were going to spend 2.5, 3 grand and then get a builder to build a base and do all of that stuff for it. So I started researching it, and I was just like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go and build my own. I'm going to build my own hand-built brick oven in the garden. And I like spent an hour and a half researching it that night, ordered some materials. The next day I was literally digging foundations in the garden, like building. It. Yeah, mate, just on it instantly, just spontaneous, just like, yeah, just went and did it. And I suppose like the series of events that took place after that tie were like, it was so much more profound than just having a pizza oven. I built the pizza oven in the garden, lit it. Firstly, was sort of blown away with this idea of like lighting a fire and cooking food next to a fire. That was just like, there was something really primal about it. It was just loved like being in the garden, poking a fire. You know, my mum said something to me, which I've shared before, which was like, if you're sat around a fire, it's almost like you've got company, even if you're alone. You stare at it. You know, when you can stare at a fire for like 3-4 hours. And I just found
mesmerizing.
It's super. It's like almost spiritual.
Flame.
Yeah. And I I built the oven, I built a fire in the garden, we would cook dinner in, and then I'd just sit out there putting bits of wood in it, staring at the fire and poking it. And for me, it was like, I really connected with that process. And at such a vulnerable time, I was maybe out of rehab a few months, less than 6 months, and still really, really vulnerable. And and it was something magical happened, right? Like I invited my friends over, and all of a sudden, after like a couple of weeks of having them over to cook in the oven, everybody stopped bringing beers and started bringing toppings, and it was almost like this.
That's quite interesting.
It was really fascinating for me, man, because I didn't have to say like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable with people drinking around me. The oven just changed that social dynamic, and we would stay up till midnight, everyone rolling their own dough, cooking pizzas. We'd end up stuffing about 4 pizzas each, but it was the process of that like community, and it was so fun, man, to do it. And so it fundamentally changed my social dynamic. And then obviously it gets to a point where you're like, this is a really fucking amazing way of living, way of cooking, way of connecting with people. Unlike a barbecue, one person, like generally dad, gets stuck in the corner, like cooking the burgers and sausages. Everyone's drinking, socializing, having a good time, waiting for food. And with the pizza oven, it was different, man. Everyone was like, there was a queue for people to open their dough, put it in the oven, turn it, pull it out. It was like everyone wanted to be part of it. And so the social dynamic just changed entirely, all because of the oven. The oven was the focal point. And that was when there was a moment for me where I was like, fuck, this is like... legitimately, there's a really interesting opportunity to try and bring this to more people in a more affordable way. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially where the idea of the business began.
It's quite interesting to hear it. My old man's actually got a little pizza oven in his garden.
Has he?
He's quite hands-on. He's built one that he cooks like Turkish bread in and stuff.
Yeah, like Lamajun.
Yeah. You know it. You can pronounce it.
I love it, man.
It's quite a good accent there.
Thanks,
so you've launched your stone bake oven company, right? And I've got here that your first proper product was 2011.
Yeah.
And then in 12 months, you're market leaders.
Yeah. So
how does that happen?
Do you know what, man? It was really interesting. Like we launched the stone bake oven company, and it was a little bit slow. But after about 12 months in, Jamie Oliver decided to invest in a wood-fired oven brand, but they were like overseas imports for these big Italian ovens. And again, he didn't solve the problem that I ran into, which is like, how do we make this affordable for people at home? And so what we'd actually developed in the first stage was like a little sort of concrete igloo oven that was 499 quid.
Yeah.
And for 150 quid, you could buy a stand. It shipped on a pallet, assembled it, put it together, build a fire in it, you're golden, you're cooking in an hour, right? And that didn't exist in the UK market. There was no one that was creating this small, affordable little kits. Mm-hmm. They were all sort of big masonry kits that you put together.
And commercial, I bet, as well, right?
And commercial. So we weren't in commercial at that time, but we moved into commercial pretty quickly. But all of a sudden, Jamie invested in this Italian brand, and then he was cooking on Channel 4 every fucking night on TV, cooking in a wood-fired oven. And I was like, mate, I remember turning around to my missus and like very early days of our business being like, we're fucked. Jamie Oliver is a competitor. How can we ever compete with him? We're fucking done for. Like so naive, didn't have a fucking clue what was going on, but then naturally just rode off the wave of awareness that he generated for wood-fired cooking. And, fundamentally, Jamie started a movement in the consumer space. Restaurants had already adopted pizza ovens for making pizza. He started a movement where he made it like more accessible, or introduced sort of everyday consumers on primetime TV to wood-fired cooking. And I suppose we then drove a movement of driving accessibility through our products. And so, we just grew. We grew really quickly, and, we worked hard. We were like self-taught SEO, web development, customer service, product design. We were like, my wife, Laura, and I, she quit her job in London. She joined the business about 6 months in. We were like selling ovens, packaging all the goods out of our garage in the early stages. And, it was just like, the proper hustle, man, the grind. And then we gradually built up, got a warehouse, but we were still like head of warehouse. We were packaging orders. Laura and I still look back at some of the her most stressful times when, when she was palletizing boxes and we're running out of tape and we're bodging bits of cardboard together to put products together. It gives her shivers thinking back to that time. But the hustle was real, man. Like we were grinding. And so, yeah, we did that. And then Stonebake started to get momentum and we started to build a range and we started to get consumer adoption. You know, we had Jean-Christophe Novelli and the hairy bikers buy our products and start to talk about them. And, you know, River Cottage was using our products. And so all of a sudden we started to gain momentum and the brand started to get built and, you know, sales just continued to grow, which was great. And then I saw an opportunity in 2013 to move into the commercial space and to go after restaurant ovens. And I suppose that was the sort of most disruptive product that we launched to date. By that time, I developed a fast assembly modular installation system. So it basically means, in layman's terms, you get these big 2 meter diameter 1 ton oven or 1 or 2 ton ovens that historically, coming from Italy in one piece, you have to have a crane to put them in and take shop fronts down. Central London, like so many buildings are listed, they were like numbering bricks, taking bricks off, and it was costing them 30, 40 grand to put an oven in before they bought the oven, right? And taking the shop front down. So I was like, we've got to solve this. So I developed basically a kit of parts that our oven could get taken in modules through any standard doorway, up or downstairs, and assembled in a day and rendered. And it was like as good as a Neapolitan, well, better than a Neapolitan oven. And when we launched that kit, we also were the first brand in the UK to become DEFRA exempt. So because our ovens were so efficient, the materials we used, we got certificate to use them in smoke controlled zones, so like very central London and stuff like that. So
I'm with you.
We had a certificate to say you can fucking use them, and we could get them in really easily and cheaply for customers. And when we launched that, man, we just landed all of the main chains like Frank and Manca, Pizza
There's one
Pilgrims.
next to our club, and I see the G.
Yeah, mate, we landed those guys, and then it just erupted. The commercial business, we were just like went from a standing start to market leader instantly. It was crazy, and we were just inundated. We couldn't make the commercial ovens fast enough, so it was like that.
I mean, that 12 months. That butting in there. That 0 to 12 months. How many people are now working when you get to that 12-month point and you're inundated and you can't make products? How big is it? Still not still you and your wife?
Well, no, we're not a big business, right? So we outsourced all the manufacturing to local manufacturers in England. So Sheffield, Worcester. We had refractory manufacturing and like fabrication for the stands and stuff like that. But we were probably at like, I don't know, 10 people in the company, something like that. So, you know, but the good thing with the commercial oven business is like sort of inundated with ovens is maybe like 5-10 a month. So it's still relatively manageable, but they're like big ticket items. So they're like 10 grand, 15 grand. So big numbers when we're like very early stages and you're starting to sell these lumpy kits that are expensive, good margin. So we did that and became market leader. And then whilst we were doing that, I saw an opportunity for us to expand outside of the UK. So all of our products, even the Stonebake products, they were affordable for the UK market, but they were still heavy. And as soon as you ship them overseas, you just basically like diluted all your margin in shipping, right? Trying to get them into Germany or if we wanted to expand into Europe. So there was no scalability with that business, you know, with the products that we had. So I sort of had a vision. I was just like, you know, we have to get this lifestyle and this way of cooking to more people. We need to develop a product that's super lightweight that we can ship in a box for a tenner, you know, anywhere in Europe. And that was where the idea for Rotbox came. With the basic ethos that we had a dimension of a box size for shipping, we had a weight, and then it had to work like a professional stone oven, right? So
you reverse engineered it effectively.
Yeah, we sort of like we scaled down a commercial oven to make a consumer product that was like highly convenient, really accessible. So it had like a wood burning canister that went on the back that you could feed kindling into, and it also had a gas canister so you could use like bottled gas LPG. And it was like this sort of little mini spaceship looking thing, right?
I've got one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, great. Yeah, man, there was a vision for that, and we launched that. We sort of worked really hard. It took us 2.5 years to get the engineering of it right and to make it. We had to build like deflective plates in the back of it to push the fire into the floor. Because essentially a wood-fired oven works on thermal mass. The stone absorbs the heat from the fire, re-radiates it, and it stays hot. When you've got to be sub 20 kilograms, you don't have thermal mass. So we had to figure out ways of engineering the flame to work in a certain way to put heat into the floor of the oven and to make it keep hot, make it stay hot. So it was an engineering feat, right, to make it work the way that it does. And it's an incredible little product. And we launched that on Indiegogo with like a £5,000 budget. I don't even think it was £5,000. I think it was maybe £3,000. And we had like great success with it. We did like $1.2 million in sales in a month with it when we launched it, and it sort of just changed the entire business. Or in like a heartbeat, we went from having Stonebake, which was a sort of premium home brand. We had Gozney professional ovens that was doing really great things in the commercial space. And then we had rockbox.com, which was this like little product that was just rocketing. 50% of our revenue came from the US. Australia was going nuts for it. It was just, we just really, I suppose, like, built some magic there. Like the idea of building a new category and building a portable pizza oven was like so foreign, right? You'd ask someone, do you want a portable stone oven? They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Now you look at the market, there's like 100 brands doing
I've noticed there's others now.
Yeah. And, I feel really proud that we're at the forefront of developing that. And we were the first ever portable stone oven in the market, and like that's
huge achievement.
Yeah, it's fucking great, man. And it's like,
so those other companies are categorically following that idea, right?
Mate, 100%.
There's no denying it.
100%. We were the first stone portable oven in the market. But do you know what, man? What I learned was when we developed that commercial oven installation system in 2013 or whatever it was, and you go from a standing start to being market leader commercially because of innovation, right? It was like, how do we solve the consumer need here? How do we stop our man that's installing for Franco Manca having to take his shop front down, costing him 40 grand and craning an oven in? We'll take it through the door. We'll charge 500 quid for installation. We'll build it in a day and we're gone. And it's fucking easy for him. And it's like, yeah, totally. And it was just like, so there was like, let's innovate. Let's make our ovens look brilliant. Let's make them engineered to be brilliant and like work really effectively. Because also, like, we're developing a commercial oven, we're going against all the Neapolitan brands. You've got to be, if you're a fucking British new kid on the block and you're trying to sell to Neapolitan chefs, you've got to have something about you, right? You've got to, they're like, fuck you, you're British, I only buy from Naples, like that's what it's like. So our ovens were fundamentally engineered to outperform all the other ovens on the market and then be installed more effectively and look beautiful. And I suppose that became the core principles. Quality, engineering and aesthetic were the core principles of how we've designed products at Gozney moving forwards. And then, taking some of that sort of like innovative thinking and applying it to like new categories and new sectors, building a portable oven that you could burn wood or gas in, that you could buy on Amazon or direct to consumer and have it on a doorstep in a day, that like no building work, and everyone's producing like incredible Neapolitan pizzas at home. It changed the home cooking market, and it's only just the beginning. So it's like taking that approach, man, like that sort of disruptive approach to innovation with the core principles of how we design, like engineering, quality and aesthetic. And then it's like, how the fuck do we apply that to more and more products to build more categories? And that's essentially the journey we're going on with Gozney now.
If you come up with a design that doesn't hit one of those three categories,
it
doesn't make it.
No.
Wow. So you go back to the drawing board and you'll try and if you think the idea is good and it solves a problem, you'll try and fit those three ethics.
It has to be exceptional quality, has to perform like a professional grade piece of equipment, it has to look fucking beautiful. Won't go out if it doesn't, man.
That's mad.
Yeah.
The rock box thing's mad, because I said to you, that's when I noticed you guys. So we got one, I want to say lockdown 1 or lockdown 2. I can't remember now. It's like a blur, that period, isn't it?
Totally.
But we spent, making pizzas is fun, right?
Yeah.
And I've grown up, my parents have had kebab shops and takeaways, so there's a lot of pizza making. We've got a place down in Swanage now that we make our own dough and our own pizza as well. It's quick, it's easy, it's fun, tastes fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And we had loads of fun in my garden with the rock box. Yeah. All throughout that lockdown period.
Yeah.
Cooking. I was cooking all sorts in there, not just pizza.
Yeah.
Like putting in like a skillet with like
steaks in it, and veg and all that stuff. Mate, it's so good, isn't it? It's because it's like
20 minutes, 30 minutes to warm up, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're away.
And then it's like 500 degrees, just doing blazing steaks, all of that stuff. So, mate, there's magic in that. But that's only like one element, man. Truthfully, the magic in the brand is the community, is the magic that happens around that oven, right? The food is one aspect, but...
You talk about it, and I went to an event on Sunday, I told you before, the Food Arc event, and Jack was there with a Gozney oven, and you had a pop-up there. He was helping the guys out, I think. But like, people were coming along, kind of like having a slice of pizza going, fuck, that tastes good. Like, what's that? And then they were going like, what the fuck's that? And he was going, well, that's what I'm making it in. How long does it take? Oh, 90 seconds. It's about 90 seconds. So you'd have a queue of people half eating the pizza, but half kind of watching the razzmatazz, the magic. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, in my industry, a cocktail maker. Yeah. You know, when they're doing all the spinning and shit. Like Jack's doing it, he's laying it out. He's putting, the theatre, the experience. That's what we want as humans now.
100%, man. And do you know what? That was it. When we used to invite people in to come and buy commercial ovens, or they were coming in, I used to make really good dough. I used to invite them at lunchtime. I used to make them a pizza. They'd see it cook instantly, and they'd be like, "Okay, like we're obviously having it." You know, and that was it. It was just like that. That was the same thing that captured me, man. It was a 90-second pizza, 60-second pizza, whatever. It's just a magical...
And like really good food, I think we're, as humans, quite like easily taken by it, if you know what I mean. Like when Lauren does some of the photo shoots and we see some of the finished products, like this kitchen with all this food being cooked in the ovens, you're sort of like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
It never looks like that at home when you cook it, unfortunately.
No, never.
Mate, it's insane. You're, I mean, you still oversee a design team. We've kind of touched on that, but how do you keep up with demand of innovating new products, right? So you strike me as someone that's kind of like, right, we've done that, we're on to the next thing. I have a little bit of that in me as well. Yeah. I'm trying to channel that because it fucking goes wild. But how do you keep up with, in your head, is it one product a year, 2 products a year? Do you have a goal like that? Or do you just wake up in the middle of the night going, fuck, I'm going to make this?
Yes. Do you know what's interesting? Like that there are, you know, innovative products in the roadmap, in the pipeline. I think the product development cycle is a long cycle for developing consumer products like ours. You know, you have to get the aesthetic design. It goes from MPI, which is new product innovation concept, and like prototyping, getting the fundamentals of the product working, through to commercialization, or we call it MPD, which is new product development, where they basically build it from the ground up. Every nut, bolt, washer, rivet, fixing, however it goes together, they're under the skin of all of that. And then you're building it for mass manufacturing as well. So that process takes 18 months when you're going quickly, right? And
does it start, sorry to butt in, I'm just thinking of that journey in case anyone's listening. Does it literally start with you sketching?
Yeah.
You personally?
Mate, 100%. All of our products, I have like a bank of sketch packs at home that are from our existing house. I then moved on to a remarkable. I go through cycles of like, I'm not very structured, so I'll like really lean into.
Aren't they?
Yeah, I like use sketch pads, but mate, the answer is I have a little black book of innovation, right? When my head is constantly thinking, what's cool, what's next, how can we do something different? And I suppose that's like the gift that I give to the business, is like that comes quite easily to me. And when I conceptualize a product, I get it's really fascinating. Like Denny and I, our CEO, have this conversation around consumer insights and data and versus instinct, right? And you know, it's a really healthy debate actually. Like being a data-led business, but also acting on a bit of instinct where the data can't tell you.
Is he data and your instinct?
Well, he's both, and I'm both.
Okay.
I'm like 99.8% instinct, and he's really well balanced, which is great.
Yeah.
He understands the value of both. Won't do one without the other. But it's like if you go and ask someone in 2014 how many people, you do a survey of 2,000 people and you ask them how many of them want a portable stone oven, and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is it?
Yeah.
You know, you tell the world what they need and you make it relevant. You educate the world in innovation. You know, no one knew they wanted an iPod until Steve Jobs invented it, right? And it's like, that's the sort of mindset that I take. It's like, I don't want to ever build a gas barbecue. I don't want to ever build a product that exists. I want to disrupt a space where I feel there's magic to be harnessed through the core principles that I shared about performance, quality, aesthetic, in a style of cooking that embodies what our brand stands for, right? Which is like community, It's creating new experiences. It's giving people the opportunity to invest in a product that changes their life. And that's like the magic for me. That's the reason that the brand gets scale, right? Is the fact that you and Claudie cook in lockdown, you make pizzas. It changes the way that you socialize. You introduce it to your friends. They're like, fuck, I need one. And so on and so forth, right? And so anything that we do has to hit across those touch points. It has to create a new experience. It has to build community. It has to be fun, has to look good, all of those things, you know, and that's how I think about it. So I have like a little black book of products that are coming.
Where do you keep it?
Mate,
asking for a friend.
It's like, yeah, man, it's.
You know what I find really fascinating? Like, nothing that was ever created in the past, or an idea, a creation, a disruption of a market, fitted in at the time, but we use it like it's normal now. Yeah. At the time, people were deemed as mental if they come up with something different. Totally. Where does I'm trying to think of it from my perspective. I'm a business owner, right? I come up with an idea, it's a bit disruptive. But there's sometimes a lack of confidence or fear because it's never been done.
Yeah.
So where does that confidence come with you when you're kind of creating something where you think, yeah, fuck it, this is going to work, I'm going to go for it? Because people are listening now probably at home, and some of them have probably got some insane ideas, but they're like, oh, it's never been done, so it must be wrong.
Yeah,
like Apple hasn't done it, so it must be wrong.
Mate, the world that we live in the UK, man, is a cynical fucking like fear-mongering environment. No one like harnesses entrepreneurialism. I come out of rehab and someone tell me I can't do something, I'm like, fuck you, yes I can. Do you know, and I'm going to do it. And I suppose that's the one thing that is truly like innately runs through my DNA and core, man, is like an unrivaled determination and ambition to do whatever the fuck I want, right? Like if I'm going to build something, I'm going to build it and I will achieve it. No one's going to tell me otherwise. And like that has always coursed through me. And I suppose I was chatting to my CFO, Rick, about it this week, and it's just like vision, optimism, hard work, grit, determination. No one will tell me no. And also, I suppose the point that I was going to make around data, right, is live in a world. I've always, when I've got into business, I've acted like a sponge, right? I've surrounded myself by people that know more than me, and I continue to do that today. And I just suck up every bit of information out of the people that I enjoy listening to. And you know, it was interesting. I was chatting to someone on a interview this morning, and so many people feel like they get some success, they fucking did it all themselves. They know all the answers. They're like, what was the question I got asked this morning? Like, how do you sit in some of the environments that you sit in now at the board meetings, you know, with some of the most experienced people that you've got around you, and actually, like, do you pinch yourself, and you know, how do you act, and like, is it hard to keep up with all of this experience and all that stuff? And I'm just like, so fascinating. I act like a sponge. I listen to everyone around me. I take advice. I implement advice that I'm given that I think is good. I don't do it if I don't agree with it. And do you know what, man? I sit in a fucking room. I sit in a board meeting now where we've got some incredibly smart people, and I didn't come from a formal education, right? Like, they'll say words and I'm like, what does that word mean? You know, and it's like having the confidence. And I suppose that comes with a few wins and some success to be able to say you don't know something. But I guess back to your earlier point, man, is just, you know, I'm action orientated. I suppose that's the core thing for me. If I want to do something and I see a vision for something, I will fucking go out and I will start building it. And actually, like, the vision at the beginning quite often isn't what you end up building, you know, but getting out the gate and starting to build, you learn, you grow, and you adapt the vision, and it becomes something special, right? Like, launch Stonebake, and now we've got Gozney, and they're, you know, products in the same category, but completely different values, right?
Yeah.
You learn about the consumer. And the point that I was going to raise earlier about data versus instinct, my argument to anyone that talks to me about that is like, I lead my entire life absorbing information from the world, from social, from people, from you, from cooking. And my instinct is data, you know, and like, I just build it and store it and remember it. And then that makes me innovate, you know. So I just use, and people call it instinct, I call it data collection, you know, and that's how I think about innovation.
It's that human behavior kind of, you're observing it, or when you're taking it in, whether subliminally or intentionally, but you keep an eye on it, you know, like, whenever we're doing an event, I always think about this, an event, the club, I always say to the team, if we can understand what people think and what they look for, we can influence it. Not in a fucking crazy psychotic way, but in a good way to make their experience better. So if we know that someone's walking in the nightclub and every time they walk in, just watch them. If they're looking for a toilet or looking for something, it's obviously not signed very well. You know, if they're doing, how would that journey be for that customer? Who are they being greeted with? Who are they being spoken to? Once we understand that, we can then make some changes to kind of
being consumer-centric, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's
I
just
think so.
living and breathing for the consumer. And it's like, what is the best possible experience that you could give to someone so they continue to remember you?
I went to a talk with Jordan Belford, the actual Wolf of Wall Street, like, I don't know how many years ago, 5-6 years ago. And he said something that reminded me of what you just said about kind of accepting that there's stuff you can learn and being a sponge in a room.
Yeah.
You know, there's that quote, don't be the most intelligent person in the room.
Yeah.
So you can learn. But he said something that resonated with me and I've stuck with it ever since. He said, we've only got 2 stages in our life. We're either growing or we're dying.
Yeah.
And he said, the moment you think that you know it all and there's nothing left to learn and grow, you start dying.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, fucking hell, that's deep.
Yeah.
But he's right. Like the guy that thinks he knows everything at 20 or the woman or whatever the person, they're kind of now dying because there's no growth left. Yeah. You're either growing or you're dying. There's just 2 stages.
Man.
Close, fixed mindset.
Backwards. Yeah.
It's mad.
Man.
And then the other thing you said that resonated with me, the UK, the negativeness about the UK fucking does my nut in.
Oh my God. Man.
Obviously it's not set up for like entrepreneurialism. It's not set up to run your own business. It's not set up to be a free thinker. It's not set up for that. It genuinely isn't. Like let's compare USA to UK because you've obviously just come back from there. If you see, and I noticed this when I went to LA, if you see a guy with a Ferrari on the side of the boulevard or somewhere, there's people around him going, "Hey man, what do you do for a living? Like what a nice car."
Yeah.
Yes. If you see a Ferrari here, and everyone fucking listening to this, I guarantee 99% of you go, knobhead, small cock.
Yeah.
Like all these random, or you key it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You don't know
People
their
don't
story.
celebrate success, do they, here? And they don't encourage entrepreneurialism. And
But why don't we?
I don't know, man. Just a cynical mindset. I think in the US, there's an energy that anything is possible, right? Like the
Land of dreams.
Really feel that though, man. I moved out to the US, and it's like you go to a barbecue. You got a guy working at Google, guy working at Facebook. Everyone is like on a journey, man, and it's just. It's really fascinating, and people just applaud and encourage it. So people take bigger steps, man. They got bigger dreams. They go harder. And here it's just like everything is hard. Everything will fail. Like that's the sort of mindset.
Everything's like a but.
Yeah.
You know them fucking answers.
Totally.
Yeah, but. Or computer says no. There's no compromise or anything.
Totally.
You talked about design, right? I want to understand something from a commercial point of view as a businessman. You obviously design something, you draw it, you guys kind of build a concept, you get so far, because one of your ethoses is quality, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you get your concept product back and the numbers don't stack? Do you then look to make it more efficient, or do you scrap it?
I mean, that's a really interesting point, right? And we've had to be completely candid, we had that challenge with Rockbox. I think the product was built so well and so well engineered that it cost us more money than it needed to. We could have taken quality out of that product, increased our margin, kicked out a lot more cash and grown faster. But actually, it was like that compromise of like, it's very difficult to devalue a product with my ethos. So we've worked on slimmer margins than we should have done on Rockbox. And, it's a really interesting point that you raised there. We've solved it now through getting scale and finding new suppliers and actually having volume. You can drive down costs, right? But in the early days, like we couldn't. So we were a D2C brand selling direct to consumer, and it stacked up there. But as soon as you tried to go through retail, where retailers wanted a margin, the margins were like wispy, right? And so it's a really, really interesting point. I think there's a distinct element here, right, of like, it's really interesting, like having the confidence to price products, effectively, but also understanding your demographic. And I think one thing that is really easy to do when you're starting out in business is to like not have the confidence to be able to confidently price something, can feel like
give it the value it's worth.
Yeah, give it the value it's worth. And in the early days, man, like, I was just like always discounting our products to give them to people. They felt too expensive to me, even though it was a great product and like all of that stuff. And, I think with there's multiple elements, obviously, to building a brand, right? And being confident around your pricing, building a brand, connecting with your consumer, giving great service, having fundamentally a great product, a great quality that works. All of those things, there's some magic in there. You know, Steve Jobs famously didn't let the CFO in the room when he was designing products. He would design products for the consumer, and they would cost what they cost, and they would either sell it or they wouldn't sell it. It would either be viable or it wouldn't.
That's interesting.
And, you know, I sort of had that ethos at Gozney in how we design, like uncompromising about my values, right? And I think that's actually the core thing that's given Gozney the reputation and the success that it's got today. But, you know, my CFO would hit me with a stick for doing it, like, quite regularly. You know?
The reason I say that is because I there's quite a lot of similarities between us, and I would always come up with an idea of an event or something and throw a load of money at it, and would actually rather earn less and the experience be good. That's my first question.
Yeah.
So if we go on every Monday, we have our Halo meeting, right? And like, you know, say one Monday we're moaning that the figures were shit and we lost a lot of money, but my question isn't what we lost. I always ask, what was the party like?
Yeah.
As in, what was the vibe like? What was the experience like? If it was good, they're going to come back. If it was shit,
Totally,
they're not. But obviously,
man.
you're battling against your finance department that's going, well, you know, we should knock 20p off that, or don't spend that much. And it's like that kind of like...
Mate, consumer experience is... But there's just a really, really sensible... Like, great businesses find that balance in the middle, don't they?
Yeah.
Where you can make a profitable product and a great consumer experience. And I think that's an interesting journey that we've gone on in the development of our products now. It's understanding, you know, at what level you add feature sets to various products. Because we have this, or had this ethos where it's like... every product has to have as much features as we can possibly get into it. And actually, you know, thinking about, you know, giving, you know, for example, with Rockbox, it's got a wood burner, it's got a gas burner, it's got silicone jackets so you don't burn yourself if you touch it, it's family safe, all these sort of things. There's a ton of stuff in there for the consumer. And actually, the consumer wouldn't know that they needed half of it if you didn't make it for the product. And it would still be a brilliant... Yeah, it's spoiling them at the cost of your EBITDA and the cost of your margin, right? And so I think it's just... truly understanding the consumer, understanding the feature set of the product, and building out a roadmap and a pathway, specifically in consumer products, right? It's like truly getting under the skin of what the consumer wants.
It's nice to hear you stay true to it, though, with that cost element.
Oh, mate, I just, you know, I fight. Like, I fight, you know, I still fight now. I mean, we're in there now, and, you know, I still sign off the aesthetic of every single product. It doesn't, you know, like Denny and I are really close on that. Denny, our CEO, is respectful to the fact that I've built a business based on success of the products that we've launched, right, in the consumer world. So he has respect for me. I have respect for him. We will talk, you know, we will debate compromised elements at length and come to a conclusion that's right. But, you know, certainly it's like top priority for me.
I look at what you've created. I look at what my friends over at Through Dark have created.
Yeah.
And like the underlying thing is the same. Like, it's a problem solving, staying true to your values.
Yeah.
And like not budging. And that's like the main thing. Those boys have got like 3 or 4 values as well, similar to you with every product. Every product has to be X, has to be tested by them, has to be, there's no negotiation on certain 100%. Materials. And they don't budge on price because they believe in it. Like you said, they've kind of got that confidence, and it works.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely smashing it.
Yeah.
And
it's fucking crazy.
Kind of similar to what you're talking about.
Confidence, man. You touched on it, man. Like, people don't, so many people are sitting on good ideas. They don't have the confidence to go and do it. And if just inspire the world, man, just to take a fucking step of faith and believe in themselves and go after it. Like, magic can happen, man. Just got to work. I mean, I don't have a fucking education. I'm like not academic, but I just graft, and I've got good common sense, good like entrepreneurial vision. You just fucking work like you do.
Yeah, I try. I try, mate. It's one of them, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah. I don't know if that can be taught, or if that, like, there's that piece, isn't there, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're not, whether you have it or you don't. But I don't believe anything is something that we can learn anything. We're born not knowing anything.
Isn't entrepreneurialism about risk appetite? Is that what it's about, or like?
I think the definition of it is creating opportunities out of everything, like being able to see an opportunity in a situation that other people can't see.
Yeah, but some people see those opportunities, don't do anything about it, do they? You know, like
I hear you, yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the definition of an entrepreneur is.
I don't even like that word, bro.
Yeah, I don't like
fucking
it.
Thrown around.
And you know, there's stigma around an entrepreneur as someone that's almost like doesn't commit to fucking doing anything. And
That's me. Like jumping from thing to thing.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, well, you know, but I don't know what the definition of it is, man. For me, it's hard. Like, people ask me to talk about a journey. I just fucking got drive, got vision, just go after what I want and just don't stop until I get it. And that's really it, man. And you're either built to fucking do that or you're not, I think, you know.
And the other thing is, like, for the world to function, if we're being real, not everyone can be like that anyway.
Yeah, totally.
You need the layers of people doing different jobs.
Totally.
All the cogs need to spin.
There,
yeah,
right?
all the cogs need to spin.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends that have got like 9-to-5 jobs, 5 days a week, and they're so content and so happy.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking jealous of it sometimes. I'm like, mate, how, like,
It's
why
the pressure and the stress that
Yeah.
you put on your own existence.
they're just so happy. And I'm like stuck
they're looking
here.
at the view, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm like this. Like, you know, might drive a better car, might go on a better holiday, might have
gives
more
a
money in the
fuck?
bank.
Doesn't matter.
But
Zoom out.
why am I not, why do I not feel as fulfilled as they might do? And the social construct is I'm the successful one and they're not. But it's not reality.
Yeah. I speak to people that have made money and actually, like, life doesn't really fucking change. It just problems are different. And I think you've got to be quite controlled in how you like manage, you know, coming into finances and what you do with it. But it's not all it's cracked up to be, is that, I suppose, the point I'm making. But it's easy to say that when you've got like economic security and you've got a few quid in the bank. Like, it's really fucking easy to say it, you know, but
It's a tough one, isn't it?
it is. I would prefer to be fucking grinding. For me, it's just excitement. It's about having exhilaration in life. I stopped doing drugs, stopped drinking. I've got to get that fucking buzz from somewhere. Even if it stresses me the fuck out 90% of the time, there's like those moments of gold that are in it. And I don't know, I enjoy that. But it's like also momentary.
It's fucking refreshing as well, mate. Speaking to, like, I had a coffee with Alex the other day that owns Muckoff.
Yeah.
Another local business like you. There's amazing local businesses in this area. We're
Yeah.
fortunate, but it's refreshing to sit and speak to CEOs and people that aren't fucking peddling a toxic work hard narrative or aren't pretending that everything's always rosy, just being real.
Yeah,
You know, like,
fuck
how's things, mate? It's been fucking tough. Perfect. Exactly what I want to hear. I don't want to speak to everyone and them go, oh, it's amazing, mate, smashing it, fucking this.
Yeah.
Every now and then is good, but it can't always be like that. It's not real.
Yeah, and like 90% of the time it's fucking graft, hard work. Of
course.
You know, and you get those moments where you sit in events like this and someone's like, have you looked back at it? And it triggers you to be like, fuck, you know? But like the rest of the time, it's fucking chaos.
I want to touch on something a little bit more personal, but so your wife now, Laura,
Yeah.
you're this guy that's coming up with these fucking crazy ideas to build pizza ovens, and she seems like she's been super supportive. Is there a time when she's been like, just get a fucking job, Tom, we need money? Do you know what I mean? Like, just, because obviously it all sounds nice, you sat here now, you created it, but there's also such a mad journey between then. You've had a partner from nothing to something as well.
Yeah.
She's stuck by you, who's supportive.
Mate, she's insane, man. Like, we've been on the journey together, and like, you know, in the last few years, my exposure to my name and me as the innovator and the founder of the business has become even more significant.
Yeah.
And Laura, unfortunately, you know, we were talking about this at the beginning of the meeting.
right.
It's like, it's tough being a female because, you know, you go to the point where you have kids, you then burdened with that responsibility. That's probably a harsh thing to say. But it's like, it takes you out of your career and you are like stay-at-home mum, whether you fucking like it or not. And I mean, some people can do it the other way, but like, you know, my experience with Laura is like, she's wanted to obviously be out with the kids. She misses work tremendously. And she's stuck in this challenging position where, you know, we were thick as thieves and like the business wouldn't be where it is today without her. You know, in the early stages, she was like, she ran the engine of the business. I was the ideas guy. I was innovating product. She was sweeping up around me. And like, you know, it's the sort of unsung hero, isn't it? That's in the background that just sort of is the wife, you know, but actually like, you know, she's supported me through thick and thin. She's given me the confidence to carry on when I've questioned myself and like, you know, in stages where we've been right up against it financially. She's been there. She's just been a rock. She's just been fucking there. And she's never once told me to fuck off and get a job. She was like, you can fucking do this. I believe in you. Get off your ass. Go and do it. And, you know, and like that's, you know, we've had, Laura and I have got similar aspirations. We want to have some fun. We want to work hard. We sort of said when we got together, I was, how old was I? I was 22. I was like a year out of rehab. Laura's 3 years younger than me, so she was 19. We sort of said, look, we're gonna grind hard. 20s into our 30s, we're gonna grind hard. We're gonna build a business. We're gonna build some financial security in our lives. Then we'll have kids, you know, and we can do our thing. And that was the sort of our plan: work hard, build something, then have the kids and be comfortable. By the time we have kids, like hopefully have enough money to be able to send them to a good school and do all of that stuff. That was our plan. And we fortunately worked hard enough to be able to do that. But she's the backbone of it. And she still is now, man. She's in the background. And I think it's a shame because, you know, like having the kids, she obviously loves our children, loves being a mum to our kids. But, you know, I'm getting flown around the world to do events and all that stuff. And she comes to some of them, but she's just like, you know, it's
tough.
It's tough, man. When we did all the fucking heavy lifting together, and then it like the glory starts, and she's like, you know. So
I think it's invaluable having a good partner at home.
Totally.
Whether that's your wife, your husband, whatever that might be, like invaluable, because the little things. I have similar relationship with Claudia. Like she's an absolute rock. Yeah. My home is my castle. My home is my safe haven. No matter what's going on in my outer world, when I come home, it's cool.
Yeah.
Everything feels good.
Totally,
like
man.
Just a couple of words from her, a couple of encouragements, just even being sat by. We don't even have to talk. Just being sat there. It's fucking like powers
totally.
me. Powers me like I couldn't explain.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, isn't it?
I think I'm fortunate to have a partner like that. You're fortunate to have, because not everyone is in that position.
No.
You know, some people come home to worse than being out, which is why they're out all the time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, mate, I was chatting to one of our investors yesterday, and we just recently went to America together, and I was just like, oh, you know, like, do you have a good time? He was like, yeah, we had a great time. It was really nice getting home to see the wife and the kids. And I'm like, I can't remember how it came up, but we just had a conversation about how nice it is to be able to come home to the kids, the wives, and like have a happy home there.
Yeah.
He's got 8 children.
So
yeah, he
doesn't the TV, man.
Yeah, mate, I was going to say he doesn't watch the fucking TV in his house. But you know, we just had that conversation of just, you know, being appreciative. We've been on a journey. He backed me like early when we were in the, you know, in build mode, man, and it was like it wasn't necessarily going to be a home run, you know. There was still a lot of risk, and he backed me from day dot, man, and we've like sort of flourished, and we're going on a journey now, and it's just like now my role has changed. We've got such an interesting relationship. We sort of talk and reflect on the journey, and it's, you know, it's an incredible thing to be able to do, man.
How do you balance work and life? Like entrepreneur, CEO, your own business, you live and breathe it, but evidently, as I do, fuck, you switch off and have a work-life balance.
Never did, man. Like, you know, like honestly, never did. You know, when I was in build mode, always on, health came second, you know, like run a pizza oven business, you know, like anything outside of running the company was like an overhead for me. It was just gets deleted. So, you know, gained weight, not healthy, drink too much coffee, eat late at night, all that sort of stuff, right? And, you know, like only in the last few months really, man, sort of coming down off running off adrenaline for a decade, and just like, you know, like you said at the beginning of this thing, it's like business is problem solving day in, day out. So as the CEO of the business, like you get to bathe in the glory to a degree, but you never reflect on that as a CEO. You're always just thinking about your next biggest problem. And so it just becomes tiring, man. And as the business gets bigger, there are more zeros on the end, the risk is bigger, there's more to lose. It's just like, it's fucking real, right? And I think...
Lonely place as well.
Yeah,
mate.
Fucking lonely. And,
very lonely.
And Denny coming in, you know, like however many months ago it was, 4 or 5 months ago now, and just knowing that the day-to-day operation and the running of the business is in really great hands, communicates with me regularly. You know, I've sort of come to a place of balance, like started training, I've started, you know, having days with the kids, and it's just different now, man. It really is lovely, man. Yeah.
That's kind of everyone's goal, isn't it? Like I think of myself, I'd rather graft hard for a decade then have balance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's a personality type, because really you should have balance the whole way through. If you're talking to the gurus, there should always be some balance.
I got to balance now, man, and I'm like, I don't fucking want
what
it.
A run.
What
a run to get to that balance.
Oh, mate, it's like, what do I say? It's like doing a 100-meter sprint, and I'm on like 8,000th fucking meter. I'm tired, man. I need to sit on the bench for a bit. And but even now, man, I love the sort of entrepreneurial spirit of building, of going out, of conquering something, of having the next big idea.
It's fulfilling, isn't it?
Mate, it's so rewarding, man. It is so rewarding.
And I think like part of the success of the pizza oven probably is we're quite tribal creatures as humans. We want to be a part of something, a community, something bigger than ourselves, which is why when we get into trouble, they isolate us in prison.
Yeah.
Which is why lockdown fucked with so many people's heads.
Yeah.
And that pizza piece is the same. You have 4 or 5 mates in a garden together.
Yeah.
It's much more profound than a fucking bit of pizza.
Yeah.
And an oven. It's what you're
100%.
creating there is creating community, creating a sense of belonging.
Totally, man.
Coming around yours, they're all getting involved. Everyone wants a bit of part of it.
That's the magic, man. It's not the product. Product is packaged up to be really good and look really nice. It's not the food. It's, the food is a byproduct of the energy of the community that you build, man. That's exactly what Gozney is, It's moments.
So you want to hire me for marketing?
You're our brand guy.
I'll be a brand guy. Right, mate. To wrap up, what's next for you and the business? Any sneak peek products? Are you building like an Iron Man suit or anything?
I've got some stuff in the works, man. We've got some new interesting stuff in the works. We launched the Dome, which was our newest product. When did we launch that? Like
last year, no?
It was a year before now.
Was it?
Yeah, no, we actually started dropping it last year. But yeah, it was about 18 months ago. That was crazy, man. That was a whirlwind. That triggered a series of events that has taken the company on a different journey. We launched that. Funny enough, on my wife's birthday, on Laura's birthday, which I thought was a fucking good idea at the time, and then it didn't work out to be a good idea.
No, I bet.
And we had a phenomenal launch with that. We sort of sold over a year's worth of inventory in 4 hours when we launched on the website, mate. It was crazy. It was really stressful as well. We built this hype and this launch, and we launched it, and we did $8 million in 5 hours on the website, and it was just like, it broke the website. It had loads of technical challenges and created, it was a shit experience for a lot of people trying to purchase that couldn't. So that was a drama and a stress, but that sort of triggered a series of events. Like the Dome has been an incredibly successful product for the brand, and we've continued to grow that. So now, with Denny's appointment as CEO, we're sort of taking like a sort of new era of products to market. So we've got more products going out north and south of the Dome coming, scaling into retail aggressively in North America. We've got like a load of deals just been done with like some of the big retailers in the States.
Okay.
Opening up offices in Germany at the moment, Australia. It's just all go time now, man. It's like scale time.
And is that what's the end goal? Exit PLC? What you trying?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Do you know what? Like I said here, I love building. I love the journey. I think obviously money is the reason. If people say they're not doing it to make money, they're lying. Like, you can enjoy the journey and still enjoy making money at the end of it, right?
Of course.
And I do it for money. It is for money, but I don't. It's to buy me the flexibility to do what I want in my life and like have cool experiences.
Financial freedom, isn't it?
Financial freedom, man. But I suppose money's not the driver for me. It's a nice outcome, but it's not the driver. The driver is like building a significant brand, being part of that, doing something that I can look back on in my later life and feel like I've reached my potential, and feel like I've given it a good run. And so I don't know, like we've got investors in the business that will want a return. I think we'll grow the business to phases. We've got a goal in 4 years to get to a certain size. And then I think, new investors may come in, old investors may get a payday. I'll probably continue to innovate, man, and continue to grow the brand. We've gone from having a target valuation of X. We sort of got there. It's gone to Y, and it keeps jumping. And I'm just, you know, there's no signs of me not wanting to be part of the journey of building it and continuing to innovate. So I wanna become the world's largest premium outdoor cooking brand, you know, like be the biggest and be the best. And change people's lives, man. Put products in people's gardens, drive some happiness into people's lives, create family rituals, kids to put their fucking iPhones down because we make products that engage people, spend time with their parents. That's magical, man. So that's the stuff that I love doing. I literally, because of the way that I work and the way my brain works, even if I got a big fucking payday, I'm like no good sat on a boat. Like I'll drive my wife fucking nuts. Yeah. So I need to be the cogs need to be ticking, man, for me.
I suppose if you set it all up so the systems are there and you can carry on just doing the bits you enjoy, there's no need to
That's
leave.
freedom, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
of course.
It? Yeah.
I think that quote, if you find a job you love doing, you never work a day in your life. Like if you can get to that setup in life, that's got to be the ultimate goal, no?
Mate, that's definitely right. And, you know, what I've really enjoyed growing Gozney is just like the people we meet, you know, like creating community, meeting interesting people on their own journeys, and, you know, like the experience that growing the business has delivered me. It's been phenomenal, man. I've got to moved into the mountains in Utah, into Park City. That was fucking wild. Like selling our house, moving there, moved to LA for a bit, you know, like meeting people that are fundamentally innovating in their spaces, and, you know, just super fun, man. The business has just given me just so many opportunities to experience life, which I'm so grateful for.
Amazing. Mate, it's an incredibly powerful story you've shared. Thank you so much. Man. Genuinely been really, really fun.
Yeah, I've loved it. It's been great.
It's been amazing. Thanks, bro.
Nice one, brother.